Thank you all for joining me today. We're going to talk about due diligence period versus the right to request repairs. Everybody seems to want to do a right to request repairs because it's not a due diligence period, right? Did y'all all know, like I put this in here and I was quite amazed, that there actually is a 123 Main Street. It's in Fort Gordon. I thought that was pretty amazing. I was just typing an address in just to play, and there actually is a listing with 123 Main Street. Thought that was quite funny. Poor guy. I would not want to live there. Seems like you get all kinds of mail. Due diligence period versus the right to request repairs. Quick explanation. I think we all know what a due diligence period is. That gives the buyer the right to cancel the property because their nose itches. They just have a bad feeling about this house, so I just want to move along, right? They can also have repair inspections. There's a million different reasons why. They don't even have to give a reason why. Yes, it's recording. I hit record on it. So there's any reason why. When you're doing a termination, you don't even need to explain yourself with a due diligence period, right? And everybody thinks, oh, that's so much worse than having a right to request repairs. And me and Jay can kind of go back and forth on this. We have differing opinions, all right? I am of the opinion that, and maybe we should have mic'd you up as well. I am of the opinion that the right to request repairs is not the way to go, okay? It doesn't make the offer any better for your buyer, really. And as far as the seller is concerned, in my opinion, it's worse for the seller. And I'll get into that in just a minute. Just want to make sure you all are filling out your contracts properly. As you can see here, we go through here, we say 0 days due diligence period. Where you do the right to request repairs is in all your documents, and I can probably just click on page 7 and jump down there. You will check other property sold with the right to request repairs, F273 as Exhibit A, and letter your exhibits appropriately. All right, so I'm just kind of jumping over here to this. One big thing that drives all of us crazy in the contracts world is when your exhibit letters or numbers, you can actually number exhibits too. It's the practice typically, but when they don't match up to the contract, all right, just causes confusion. When Karen gets it, she's gonna kick it back to you and say, we need to correct this, all right? So address information, and you'll see here the property sold with the right to request repairs. The buyer shall have the right to request that the seller repair and or replace defects, if any, in property identified by buyer's inspectors in a written report within X number of days. So that's how many days you have to inspect the property, get the report back, and begin trying to negotiate repairs, if you will. One of the things that really makes this not in favor of the seller, if you're representing a seller, is they're gonna have to provide you with an inspection report, right? If you have a due diligence period and you're selling the property as is or anything like that, you can literally say, I'm not making any repairs to the property. Don't send me your inspection report. We're not doing anything. If you want anything, just terminate the contract on the sell side. So Mr. J, give me your rebuttal to that.
The rebuttal is it can, in certain circumstances, help you win the bidding war, because if you've got a seller that is just looking for a 0 in that due diligence column, this gives it to them. And it gives them a reason to say yes. Sometimes that's all it takes. What Dwayne is saying is absolutely true. It still requires you to negotiate the deal. It still requires you to get the inspection. Sorry, and a little louder. Dwayne is right. It still allows you to, it still has those provisions, so he's absolutely correct. But sometimes all it takes is something on that page, a 0 in a place where they don't have to understand all the things that you understand. Sometimes it can still help you close the deal and win the bidding war.
All right, so if you're representing the buyer side, Jay's right. We can both say you're right on this, right?
Yep.
So if you're on the buyer side, you want to do this because that 0 in due diligence, that does move some people. If I was representing the seller, I'd go, that doesn't move me. Let's wipe this out. I don't want to see your inspection reports. I'm not doing anything. You want to have an inspection, fine. Here's your 7 days due diligence to do it. There's really no difference other than you have to negotiate repairs if you do this as the seller. All right, for defects. So there's a nail, I want this painted, all that stuff. That's not gonna fly with the defects.
And it does specifically list which defects
Fix.
there.
Yes. That's further down.
I got a question. So you said the seller has to? When you say have to negotiate, what do you mean by that? Like they have to like reduce the price or do something? Or
If they don't
Yeah.
make any defect repairs, the buyer can terminate, get their earnest money back. And now they have a duty to disclose these exact repairs on the sell side. That's kind of the bad side of it. Because here's my inspection report. I'm saying you have to repair these defects. And so now, moving forward, you have to disclose all of that information to any future buyers. In which case, most future buyers are going to go, well, I want that fixed too, right? Go ahead, Miss Athena.
The 7 days, is that, it says within 7 days, is that to negotiate the repairs being?
No, we're going to get to that. Well, I'm going to get to that in just 1 second. And I intentionally added the wrong number in there. So that is to get your inspection report back and make the request. These are the items that are defective that we need fixed. Okay? So in this second section, it says a buyer timely submits within 7 days an amendment and accompanying inspection reports. So they have to send the inspection reports. Buyer and seller shall have 3 days to negotiate, right? People kind of do that. They just blah, 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 fly through the numbers, right? This is not 3 days from this date. It is 3 days from the binding agreement date. So if you put 3 days in there, you don't have any time to negotiate if you turn it, even if you do turn it in timely. Because you were supposed to have negotiated repairs within 3 days of the binding agreement date. So that is the biggest mistake that people make when using this form. And I just want you to all be aware of it and not do it. If you wanted 3 days, that needs to be 10 days. Because both of these dates are from the binding agreement date. Make sense? Don't get caught up on that one. Don't start reading through the contract language too fast. Why it's like that, I really have no idea. It is one of those things that is just, it was thrown in there, and I personally think they should change it, but I don't write the contracts. Any other questions on this? Do y'all want me to get into the actual defects that are listed? I mean, it's pretty, just make sure you're reading through all of it. Because the fact that there's a small hole in the wall is not a defect on the property, so they're not patching, painting, and doing all that stuff. Make sense? Any other questions? It's going to be a quick huddle. We're good with it.
One question, termites wouldn't be considered a defect, right?
Would termites be considered a defect as far as this?
Yes.
It could be a hidden defect, but let's see. Shall mean, the term defect shall mean any infestation by termites. Yes.
Didn't have to read it.
I'm just teasing with you. It's fine. So yes, but for this form, defects are specifically listed. If it's something that is not on this form that comes up on the inspection report, there's no obligation. The buyer can't terminate their contract. They can't do anything. Make sense? Miss Athena?
So you're only terminating if you can't come to an agreement within those additional 3 days?
If this, so the buyer has to make a request for these repairs to be made that are listed as defects, right? If the seller says, no, I'm not making those repairs, the buyer can terminate. If the seller doesn't make a decision, that's in there as well, the buyer has the right to terminate. If the requirements of the preceding sentence have not occurred by the end of the date of resolution, I'm sorry, they don't even have to negotiate. The contract actually automatically terminates on this verbiage. If you read through it all, the buyer or preceding, let's see. Seller may accept in writing other parties' last written counteroffer, so you can kind of go back and forth, all that stuff. But if you read that, notwithstanding any provision to the contrary contained within herein, everybody knows what that means. I don't care what else was written in the contract anywhere else. The following statement will. If the seller agrees to repair all defects timely, then the buyer may not use this exhibit as a basis to terminate. Where's the other one? I'm lost here. You'll have to excuse me.
I can't read it very well.
Is it in 3, notwithstanding any provision to the contrary and any additional test study?
So it says if they agree, then the buyer can't terminate.
Yes, if they agree, the buyer cannot terminate. If they don't come to an agreement, there's language in here that automatically terminates the contract. Let me find it real quick. If final agreement defects repair. Unless they change the form on me again. It's always a good excuse. If neither party timely accepts the other party's counteroffer, buyer does not elect a property as is, this agreement shall terminate. Right there. You see that? If the buyer does not want it, the agreement shall terminate. Meaning you don't need a mutual agreement or a termination agreement, anything like that. It terminates.
So there's no battling over the earnest money?
The sentence after that is, shall be entitled to a return of the buyer's earnest money.
So if you still have to have mutual agreement under a termination, I would still say that it would be wise to get it. But if the other side just flat out refuses to sign it, a 10-day demand letter, as we went over last week or a couple weeks ago, reading and interpreting the contract, buyer's entitled to earnest money, it's right there, written clear as day. Other questions? No? All right.